Going on, guys? So I was reading this thing saying that Sony was hinting at another Uncharted game. Now I can't find the article, or I'll link it in the description because I was reading it on my damn netbook, not my phone. So that's why I don't have it. Now here's where I get a little confused because Sony is not the developer. Sony is not the developer of any games. They don't develop their own games. They're not in-house developers. They don't know how to do that shit. So why would Sony be the ones who are hinting at anything? They own first-party rights to third-party developers. If you don't know what that means Horizon is made by a third-party studio, Guerrilla Games. But they own first-party rights. That means they were the highest bidder when it came to putting it on their fucking console. They paid through the nose to make sure that it was only on their fucking console. Regardless of what some developer will tell you, more than not, that was part of the contract as well. A lot of the times that comes with the contract that these fucking consoles will have. Okay, and I don't understand that, which is bullshit 9 times out of 10. Okay. Oh, well, we could only put our game on Sony because Sony has the most powerful console. Or we could only put our game on Xbox because Xbox does this. Or we couldn't put our game on Nintendo because of whatever. Whatever the case may be. A lot of the times when a company like Sony or Xbox puts up the highest amount of money, it usually comes with some kind of circumstance. And 9 times out of 10, it's bullshit. But here's the thing. Naughty Dog, the creators of Uncharted, would have to say another Uncharted game, which I don't think I would see happening anytime soon. I mean, the Lost Legacy happened and is a thing, which I'm not mad at. I'm not saying that, and I like the Uncharted franchise. Don't get me wrong, I've played every one of them except for the Lost Legacy because I don't have my PS4. That aside, let's look at this in perspective. We're also trying to get The Last of Us 2, which is a big project, and I think a lot more people are looking forward to The Last of Us 2. So I don't think we could expect to hear anything from Naughty Dog aside from The Last of Us 2 until then. I mean, if they want to put out more Uncharted, that's fine, but it's probably going to take away from The Last of Us 2. And Sony jumping the gun here is only going to hurt their brand. It's only going to hurt PlayStation. They don't need to do what Xbox is doing with Crackdown 3, which is getting all excited and fucking blowing their load way before time, which is what they did with Crackdown 3. And they've admitted that several times. We jumped the gun here, we jumped the gun there, we jumped I mean, that's all we've done this generation over at Xbox, is jump the gun several times. And they don't need to be doing that, especially because Sony, again, does no in-house development. They go out of their way to developers to throw their Sony dollars at them and say, please put this game on our system and our system alone. They don't need to do that. They need to respect their developers and go, hey, is it possible? And if it's possible, please come to our events like the Sony Experience and come out on stage and announce it as the developer. Sony needs to keep their mouth shut on anything because they don't need to say a word because they are in the most I don't know the nicest way of saying, they're in the most slippery slope of fucking themselves right now, okay? You have a VR headset which is on its way to becoming the biggest failure because you opened your fucking mouth and promising shit you knew you weren't going to be able to, deliver on. You have a handheld that failed, and granted, it only failed everywhere other than Japan, but that's a pretty big area considering the world is a big place. Um, VR, which is not a success, it sits in less than 5% of the current PS4 owner population. That's a failure. The VR is not looking promising. I'm sorry. I played on not a PSVR, but a Samsung VR headset for the first time today, and I gotta say, that's pretty fucking cool. I'm looking into getting a Samsung VR as soon as I can upgrade my phone. But it's a Samsung VR because again, it's affordable and I can actually demo it, which again is a thing that Sony is probably holding you back because you can't demo the damn thing. But again, I'm looking at this from a perspective that a lot of people don't. And you going out on a limb saying, oh, more Uncharted is coming, but you're not a developer. It's only going to hurt you. It's not going to help you. Okay? Going out on a limb saying, hey, Naughty Dog is going to continue making Uncharted games, that's fine. But you might not want to say anything. Maybe have Naughty Dog come out and say it. Maybe have Naughty Dog come out and say, hey man, there's going to be more Uncharted after The Last of Us Part 2. That's what you need to do. You need to go about this the right way, because all you're going to end up doing is fucking up your core console sales. And that's the last thing you want to do. Because again, you're not a developer. You have contracts with third-party developers, which get you first-party games. And once those Sony dollars dry up, we've seen this before, those games can go to Xbox and they can go to Nintendo. And yes, I am referring to the contract they had with Square Enix, which had Final Fantasy exclusively on PlayStation for the longest time, but now it's on Xbox as well. Okay, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9, Final Fantasy 10, all those games were exclusive to PlayStation. Then all of a sudden, all the way up to 13, and Square was like, fuck you, and they took their business over to Xbox as well. So, don't think that Sony has exclusive anything. They don't have in-house development. Guerrilla Games is their own studio. That's a developer that Sony gives them money for, okay? Insomniac, that's a whole nother studio that Sony pays a lot of money for them to have a game only on their system. Same thing with Microsoft. They pay a shitload of money to a developer, a certain developer, just so they can have that one title only on their system. That's how those exclusives work on both Sony and Microsoft. I don't understand how a lot of people don't get this, because again, Sony doesn't have a development studio, neither does Microsoft. Just because you think they do doesn't mean they do. Okay, if they did, trust me, the games would probably be coming out a lot different. Okay, yes, they can write Sony on the front. Yes, you can write Microsoft on the front, but that doesn't mean either one of those companies respectively made those. Okay? Because when you look at the box art, when you look at all of them, 9 out of 10 of them, I mean, come on. Horizon is a first-party game, but it's made by Guerrilla. The same company that's responsible for another first-party game, which is Killzone, but it's made by Guerrilla Games. Are you following the pattern here? Santa Monica Studios, responsible for God of War, but it's a first-party game, but it's a third-party studio. See how that works? Halo was made by Bungie, but it's a third-party studio, but it's a first-party game. You see how that works? It's not really first-party if a third-party studio is making it. And that's how Microsoft and Sony have survived on that kind of thing. Then you have Nintendo, who has actual first-party games, which they're made in-house. And that's why it's so much, it's so different. You know, whereas, like I said, I really wish people knew the difference between in-house and bought third-party games, because then you could break it, I mean, really break it down. because money is swapped about when it comes to these games. But that's just something that's kind of swept under the rug. People forget about when they talk about these things. Oh, I don't understand. Horizon is a great first party game. It's a first party, third party bot exclusive. It's a Guerrilla Games game. Sony paid a shitload of money for to make sure that it was only on their system. Sort of like Halo. Microsoft paid a shitload of money to Bungie to make sure they were exclusively on the Xbox brand. Same thing with Fable. Same thing with fucking Crackdown. Get what I'm saying? Same thing with those. Same thing with Sunset Overdrive. It was made by Insomniac. Okay? All these games made by these third-party studios are getting a shitload of money to only appear on these specific brands. Okay? Because they are third-party developers. They are third-party studios. They could go anywhere if they chose not to be bought out like that. So when you see these articles saying that Sony is promoting another Uncharted Past Lost Legacy, they're kind of talking out of their ass. Because Sony doesn't own anything. They don't own Naughty Dog. They have the exclusives for Uncharted as long as Naughty Dog is happy with them. Just like when Nintendo had the exclusives with Rareware on the Nintendo 64 until Rare up and left and went to Microsoft. It's the same deal. Okay? That's why you see Rareware Replay on the Xbox One. All those games came from the Nintendo 64, or the mass majority of them came from the Nintendo 64. The only thing on there is you don't see the Donkey Kong. You don't see that because that's a Nintendo name. You don't see, I don't think no, GoldenEye is not on there. But I mean, you got Conker's Bad Fur Day on there. That's a Nintendo 64 game. You got Banjo-Kazooie, Nintendo 64 games. Okay? You go looking through that, and majority of those games are on the Nintendo 64. It's the same fucking deal. So again, I gotta say, when Sony makes statements like that, they're talking out of their ass. Whenever Xbox makes statements like that, they're talking out of their ass. The only company that can legitimately say another franchise has a sequel on the way is Nintendo, because they're the only ones making in-house games. Nobody else is. And I get it. Yeah, I got people on my channel who love to talk about Sony being the greatest. I really don't care. More power to your opinion. Okay, but here's the thing. They don't have real exclusives. When those companies have decided that those dollars are not valuable anymore, they will take their product and get money from wherever the hell else they want. And that is truth, okay? If Guerrilla decides Sony is no longer valuable, they will take their product to Xbox or they will take their product to Nintendo. Regardless of how you personally feel about that. That's just truth. Because Guerrilla is its own studio. They're not owned by anybody. They're just, hey, we're getting the most money that we are getting from Sony. That's all that is. Hey, the biggest check we're getting cut right now is from Sony. Same thing with Bungie. Bungie saw the most money coming from Xbox. That just happened to not be the truth when it came to Destiny. It paid off more to be on everything. You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, when you look at it from that logical point, it's all about the cash. It's all about money. It's all about following that paper trail. And when you look at it from that standpoint and you realize Naughty Dog is not about being owned by anything, statements coming out of Sony like that just have them talking out of their ass. And they don't need to do that. Because at any moment, whether it be daytime, whether it be nighttime, whether it be, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, anybody can take top position. Any company can fall off. It takes literally nothing. It can change like that. And they just gotta watch what they do. So anyway, I'm gonna get the hell up out of here. I will see you guys next time. Deuces.